In this episode of Recent Comic Reads, we're going to ask the question, are there any good Marvel comic titles? Coming right up. Welcome to the second episode of Recent Comic Reads. I had a lot of fun making the first episode where I can weave in more of my weekly comics, new monthly titles, and share my impressions with you guys. And today we're tackling, I think, a topic that I've seen come up on a lot of channels, a lot of discussion groups, Facebook groups, Reddit, whatever. And that is, are there any good Marvel comic titles? For those who keep up with comic news, you're probably well aware that DC Comics is killing it, especially with their Absolute line and almost anything with the word Batman thrown in the title, while Marvel seems to be really losing their edge. Frustration where some of the classic books like Amazing Spider-Man and X-Men are currently. Whatever the case, we're going to tackle 5 books today. And in short, the answer is yes, there are some good Marvel titles, but I say that with the caveat that there is indeed something maybe a little bit off with all the Marvel titles. Just off the top of my head, I do know that the Marvel titles in general have felt very, very disjointed. And that might just be a matter of which titles I'm keeping up with. I certainly am not keeping with every single Marvel title out there, but even like within the X-Men titles, everything's very siloed, and occasionally you get a crossover, but nothing on the broad scale. And then that's not to mention that there are tons of comic events happening in Marvel, maybe too many. I think there are 3 slated for this year alone. All this is to say that while I might try Marvel titles here and there, I've been pretty quick to jump off because whether they're quick to cancel them, everything becomes like a limited series of 5 issues. I've been very quick on the trigger to jump ship from a lot of the Marvel titles, which is just bizarre for someone who is a Marvel zombie, a huge Marvel fan since getting into comic books. And with that out of the way, let's jump into some of the books that we're going to talk about today. First up, we're going to start with something positive. Let's talk about the recently relaunched Daredevil issue number 1. This one is brought to you by the creative team of writer Stephanie Phillips, artist Lee Garbett, and colorist Frank Martin. And I will be straightforward to say I don't have a lot of background reading Stephanie Phillips series. I know she was writing the recently wrapped up or recently canceled, however you want to frame it, Phoenix series in the X titles, which really brought Jean Grey Phoenix to space and tied her to some of the more cosmic aspects of Marvel. I want to say like Rocket Raccoon, maybe Groot showed up. I know Thanos popped up in that book. I might have to go back to it because I love me some cosmic Marvel. But we're talking about Daredevil today, and I'm going to say this was a really solid read. So I really enjoyed the writing. I think Phillips has a great voice for Daredevil. I also really enjoyed the art. So the writing and the art were on point. And I'm not really familiar either with Garbett's work, but I'm here for it. For this particular version of Daredevil number 1, I had to go with the Daniel Warren Johnson variant cover. Absolutely love his work, but this one I really enjoyed it. The premise in short is that Matt Murdock is now teaching in law school. Something I don't think that's been done before, but it's definitely not too much a stretch to see him in that role. There's some setup of some new characters, a new villain, and a tweaked supporting cast. But all in all, I really enjoyed it. I'm in for probably the first arc of this series, and overall, I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. If you are a Daredevil fan in the least bit, or maybe you're really enjoying Daredevil Born Again on Disney+, this is a great issue to jump in on. Moving on, we've got the conclusion of a series, and that is Ultimate Wolverine issue number 16. And let's just get the hard part out of the way. This was trash. This was not good. Basically, this whole extension of the series, I think originally it was supposed to end with issue number 12, and then they tacked on another. It's kind of like when you don't know when to stop. I think the main thinking, my guess, is that they wanted the series to run at least into a little bit of Ultimate Endgame. And before I forget, the creative team on this one is writer Chris Condon, artist Alessandro Cappuccio, and colorist Brian Valenza. And a quick note on that is like the art for this series has been great. I don't think Cappuccio was on for every single issue, but for the most part, I really loved his work on Moon Knight. Along with the colors of Brian Valenza, I thought they established a great moody atmosphere. At the very least, that moody atmosphere helped this last arc, which essentially has Wolverine chasing down Magik, or Illyana Rasputin, who was an antagonist of the series. But again, these last few issues were not originally slated, and it's like you got an ending of a movie, and then the movie just kept going. And the pacing of, that final little arc was all off. It really did a disservice to a decent series. I'm not gonna say it's like the best Wolverine series out there, but it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And, with this series ending and ultimately the Ultimate Universe ending, man, this really was just, put everything on a down note. And for that reason, my rating of this issue in particular was a 2 out of 5. So maybe check it out, all together in a trade or on digital, or even just read the first 12 issues and forget the last 4. That's how much I disliked it. Now for the third book that we're talking about today, we've got Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant, issue number 3. Creative team behind this one is writer Marewa Iwadelli, artist Frederica Manson, and colorist Javier Tartaglia. And apologies if I butchered any of those names. This series, I really enjoyed the initial, I would say, I think it was 10 or 12 issues. This is one of those which got, paused for Age of Revelation. It got turned to some story with Storm and Rogue. I don't know. I did not read it, even though it did have the same writer. But when I came back, and this 3 issues in, and also this is a mini-series. It's going to be wrapped up in 5 issues. I don't know if that was the original plan. I feel like this series, again, has Storm tying into like cosmic Marvel, tying into the realm of magic, and just some really large-scale things. I have a bad feeling that this Iwadelli had to rush to finish this up. And honestly, since it came back as Earth's Mightiest Mutant, Storm hasn't been hitting with me the same way that the first part of the series went. That being said, it's not like the voice for her changed. It's just, I think, where the story is going and even the pacing a little bit, it's just not as tight. So I'm not sure why that is, but it's also the case where it's only a 5-issue limited series, and I think it should give us a conclusion to the story that Iwadelli wants to tell. So again, while I don't like it as much, I'm still here for it. I will say that whatever future projects this writer is on, I'm gonna at least check out the first issue, especially if he's working on a character that I enjoy. So I'm really hoping that this one does not rush for the end. I hope it can keep pace to as best as it can, especially if there were scheduling changes. And ultimately, I would give this issue a 3.5 out of 5. I know that's not a terrible score, but it pains me a little bit to give it that, as this was one of my favorite Marvel titles coming out each month. But these things happen with serialized stories. Moving on to the next book is a title I had picked up the first 2 issues of. I liked it, but didn't like enough to stick with it. Kind of the phenomenon that I mentioned at the top of the video. But because I am a big fan of this writer, and I think he has a good story to tell, we got Captain America issue number 9, and the creative team behind this one is writer Chip Zdarsky, artist Ton Lima, and colorist Romulo Fajardo Jr. So yeah, I came back to Captain America. I had heard a good buzz behind this current arc, which started, I want to say, issue number 6. This is basically setting up the first of the Marvel events coming this summer, Armageddon. I forget which other characters in the Marvel Universe are going to be involved. So, I'm a sucker for an event if I think it's going to be at the very least entertaining. I'm really hoping that this event also has some sort of change that shifts the status quo, and whether that's for one character, for one team. For Captain America here, he is dealing with a new incarnation of S.H.I.E.L.D. that Nick Fury Jr., is that what they call him? I forget if they just call him Nick Fury or Nick Fury Jr. Let's just go with Nick Fury for now, but he's putting S.H.I.E.L.D. back together with some super agents from an international background. And so, yeah, I dig the story being told. There is a power vacuum with Dr. Doom gone in Latveria, and everyone's rushing in. You've got two parties within Latveria fighting for control. You've got the Red Hulk, who is kind of going off on his own, but he wants to claim Latveria and all its resources for good old USA. And then, of course, you have, an upstanding individual like Captain America trying to figure out really what is the best option for leadership going forward for the citizens of Latveria. So story-wise, this has been super solid. I think even with issue 10 kind of double shipped in April, they're trying to play catch up to, I think, line things up with this title along with said event that's going to launch soon. One knock against this title, though, is there were certain times that the art just was not pulling its weight. There'd be the kind of really oversimplification of like facial features and just things that look really just unfinished. So the art has not been my favorite. I think that's more with issue 8 in general. I had to take a step back and be like, what the hell is going on with the art here? Issue number 9, though, I think the art did not take me out of the story. I mean, that's pretty bad if you have to stop in your tracks from reading and being engrossed in the comic and just be like, what am I looking at here? What is happening on the page? It's not like the worst art I've ever seen, far from it, but given how profile this title is, I think people have listed Cap as probably one of the top 5, top 3 titles coming out from Marvel right now. But I do think it deserves better for art. I'm sorry, maybe the artist is a little greener here and will develop in time. I mean, because again, the basics are good, but maybe it's deadlines. There's a lot of what ifs, right? So overall, though, it is a good read. I like what Zdarsky is putting down, so I'm gonna stick with this Cap title for the foreseeable future. And I would give this issue a 4 out of 5 stars. And the 5th and final book we're going to talk about in today's video, it's probably what many, if not the majority of people, would consider the best title coming out from Marvel Comics right now, and that is Infernal Hulk. And the creative team behind this title is writer Philip Kennedy Johnson. For this issue in particular, it's artist Adam Gorham and colorist Matt Wilson. And if you're not familiar with Johnson's previous work on the Hulk, this is what happens when you turn the Hulk into a horror title. There's body horror that we're familiar with the Immortal Hulk when Al Ewing was writing that, and I really dig that whole series. So was happy to follow along with Johnson's version here. I do have to say I haven't finished Johnson's previous volume on Incredible Hulk. I'm probably about like 10 issues in, but I am definitely motivated to go wrap that up so I can just know fully what happened going into this one. That being said, you can just start right off with issue number 1. I think a trade is either available or soon to be available, and if a Hulk horror title sounds good to you, I mean this totally delivers. I should also mention issue number 6, we have Tony Stark Iron Man here with a suit of armor that is infused, I think, with the powers, or it's complemented by the powers of an angel. just, as you do. But since Hulk is basically like a demon, it makes sense to have something, on the side of light to try to combat him. But here's a title that I'm eagerly awaiting each month. It almost seems like too much time is passing between issues until I can read another issue. But I'm really enjoying it. Just for the rating, before I forget, this one gets a 4.5 out of 5. And really, each issue has been delivering. One other thing to note is that the regular artist is Nic Klein, who is an artist that I greatly enjoy, and he was also working on the previous volume, but he would have to take breaks. I think like he'd be in for like 3 issues, and then you'd have a guest artist. And I will say that is where the previous volume might take some people out, because Klein's work is so good. It's hard, depending who you have as the fill-in artist at the time. I know it took me out a little bit, just wanting Klein to come back. I did mention like he is working on this book and not for this issue, but I will say that Gorham has a similar enough style where it was not distracting. Of course, I would love to have Nic Klein work on every single issue, but hey, work-life balance is really important in the world of comics. That's really hard to come by. So if they figure out a good kind of rotation of artists to keep everyone fresh, hey, that's all good. I don't want any delays in this title because it's doing such good work. So yeah, this is probably my favorite Marvel title currently, and if you poke your head around various YouTube channels, you'll also see a lot of people singing the praises of Infernal Hulk. So those are all the comics for the second episode of Recent Comic Reads. Now I want to hear from you guys. Do you agree, disagree with any other things I shared today on any of these books? I'd love to know, are any of these titles on your pull list? Or is your interest piqued after I shared a bit about them? Let me hear from you down in the comments below. I try to respond to all the comments within a day or two of posting, and I would just love to hear from you and have a good chat. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Take care.